Hello. Hello, Enrica Escobar here. I am a woman who rules with a new leaf. I just want to play something for you. It's the American Indian National Anthem. Um, and it's it's been adopted by the American Indian movement as a national anthem. There's a story behind it, but um, I'm not gonna share that right now. I just want to play it for you and play it right now for those that are there standing and doing that are doing the blockades and standing up for what's Etsuin, the people and the blocking the pipelines, stopping the pipe, trying to stop the pipelines, and standing up for our rights and standing up for our lands. And it's time indigenous people start standing up for our rights and start standing up and taking pride. I know we're only like 15% of the population, but as we do this, we have to consider our non-indigenous friends and get them on our side and educate. And it's time now, like, I know what's going to happen. Things are going to escalate and keep going, but it just needs to be keeping peaceful and spreading peace. And right now, this is the Valentine's Day, and I just wanted to spread the love. And I know it's probably like almost over now, but as the Valentine's Day, just wanted to spread the love. And one of our seven grandfathers teachings, one of our teachers is love. May love guide our actions. May love guide us to walk in truth. May love guide us to make changes and stand for rights and stand for justice and stand for honor and faith and belief in knowing what we're doing. This is our territories, our lands. Indigenous people have been oppressed for far too long. We are the new Israel. It's time to let our people go. Time to pay us what you owe us. Canada's rent is long overdue. Time to pay the taxes. Time for the corporations and companies to start being responsible and pay for the minerals and resources that you've extracted from the earth and profited at our expense, making our children sick, taking our children from their families and putting them in schools, abusing them in every which way you can sexually. This really was a cultural genocide that happened, and the atrocities that have happened in this nation, in the forming of this nation, need to be let out. People need to know what's happened. There were agreements made with indigenous peoples, and those agreements are not honored. They haven't been honored. They're not honored, and we're asking now. We're going to repossess the land. It's time to repossess. That's what the banks do. That's what corporations and banks and all this kind of organizations do. Well, here we have an agreement. Canada breaks its own laws. The government lets corporations and companies and oil companies and all and corporations, electronic, water, power, where even land. We don't get paid the taxes for the land that is rightfully owed to our peoples. We don't have a say in where that money goes and how it's governed. We're not involved in government at the tables. We're not involved at the Supreme Court of Canada and Parliament. Yeah, we have 10 members in Parliament right now that were elected in there. In an election that's not even ours. We Indigenous peoples are owners of the social democracy system that Canada uses right now. So I'm just going to play an anthem for Indigenous peoples everywhere who are taking a stand and having a courage enough to make a stand for our people. This is just what's going to happen. These things are just going to keep going, and this is something I had mentioned a year ago and started talking about a year ago. That I said that these things are Indigenous people are. It's time to take a stand when elections happen. Going and talking at the debate, and I talked at the debate asking when Indigenous people are gonna be invited to the conversation, invited at the table to have a conversation in governing this nation. I talked about the systems that are already in place. There's already an electoral system in place. Indigenous peoples can use that elective system to vote in a leader, like we have the Assembly of First Nations, and we should be really pursuing this lawsuit with the United Nations Declaration of Rights of Indigenous Peoples. We were here first, and we're still here, and you need to acknowledge us. And it doesn't matter how if you're fair skin, blonde hair, blue eye, Native, you're Native. 1%. This government doesn't have the right to tell us what percent and who's Indian, who's not. We are all, if we have Indigenous blood, then you're Native. So, and you have a right, and you have rights, and we have a right to be sitting there at the table, governing, involved in government. Our leaders have a right. We have a right to self-determination in our nation. Not just self-determination, but a serious seat at the tables in the Supreme Court, having a veto in the Supreme Court of Canada. I know non-Indigenous people are afraid to share their power, but we're not about vengeance. We're just about protecting and healing our lands. So here we are, because we do this because we love Canada. We out of love, we welcomed people to our shores. We welcomed and helped and gave help and aid and food and medicine, and we share it. We've got to share it. We signed agreements because we thought we were signing agreements with good, honest people, good, honest nations. And here they are, it was papers of lies, of broken promises, things that didn't happen, agreements that were dishonored and not honored, and people that come here to this nation don't even know how Indigenous people are treated, have been treated. There's a little snippet in history books. So it's time to get it in the curriculum and acknowledge that this is how a nation was founded. Israel was founded on the backs of slaves, on the backs of oppressed people. That was in Egypt. Egypt at one time yeah, was on the backs of slaves and the backs of a nation of people that were oppressed. Well, here we are, a nation of people oppressed for over 400 years, like the Israelites were oppressed. First, they were oppressed in Egypt, and then under Persians, and then under Romans and Greeks and Persians, and all of those, and they were just over 400 years, over 400 years, and then after 400 years, they were freed. Well, here we are, indigenous peoples, when we came here at 1492, almost 400 years, 500 years now. Here we are, fighting now for our emancipation. Slowly and slowly and slowly, we're getting it now. We have our rights, being able to vote in 1960, getting the right to even vote and be called persons on our own lands, on our own nation. Concentrate the reserves, having the Indian agent, being able to, not our peoples weren't allowed to leave the reserve unless they had the permission of a bureaucratic agent, and this agent was corrupt. Yeah, people weren't allowed to come and go, and it was a corrupt system from the top all the way down. So and it still is. So here we are, fighting for a seat at the table in government, for recognition and acknowledgement of who we are, acknowledgement of our rights. Listen. Thanks for listening, and thanks for listening. I just kind of glad right now for a lot of this stuff, and a lot of what's going on is just really promising. It's kind of promising to think and to know that the land, that this country that we live in can be healed and can be a source of healing for the world. So I'm glad for that. Here's my son. This is my son, Justice Kabodi. He really helps me out a lot with my videos and everything. He helps me get them out on YouTube. I'm not very good at putting them on the YouTube, but he helps me out that way. So, because kids just know this technology stuff. They're good. Our youth really are a source of knowledge and wisdom. And if we tap into our youth, they are quite a resource, and that they can come a long way and help us. And right now, you know, we have strikes going on here. Strikes going on in Algoma District School Board. And my son misses, because of the school, he goes to school sometimes only 2 days a week or 3 days a week. Like, it's really kind of sad with the strike, but, you know, the teachers are fighting, you know, for their right. They're using their democratic right to protest, and they're protesting. And I think here, as Indigenous peoples, we're starting to protest and stand up for ourselves and stand up for our rights. That it's a good idea. It's a good idea to teach our youth, you know, that we don't have to just take it. We don't just have to take what's happening and accept it, and that we can stand up and we can make a change and we can advocate for our rights. Time for Justin Trudeau, time for the Canadian government, time for the corporations, time for these billionaires who've been profiting off our lands and resources. Time for them to start paying their taxes and start paying back the Indigenous peoples for everything they steal and stole. Corporations, oil companies, people operating business on our lands. Yeah, it's time now to start paying your taxes of operation to the Indigenous peoples, and let us have a say in how these taxes are managed and operated, because we are the landowners. This is our nations to government. We were here first. We were governing here. You lied to us. You lied to us. Came to our shores and made us sign agreements and things and papers that we didn't understand. Made us sign in languages we didn't understand. Your interpreters that lied, and we said we were promised this and promised to prosper this and that, and none of it happened. So, you know, people wonder why we are standing up here for our rights, standing up here wanting to shut down the nation. Hey, we got to get your attention. We've had enough. Canada's Indigenous have had enough. Our women are going missing. Our children are sick and dying from water when there's easy. Dean came in slingshot technology to be instituted in all water treatment. Everybody should have clean water. Everybody can have food. This land has more than enough for everybody, and we're poisoning our people. There's solar and wind technology. We could have cars that don't pollute. We could have e-cars, e-engines that don't pollute. solar and wind on every home and public building. There'd be no more power outages, no need for power grids, power lines. Like, wireless technology has come a long way. A long way. It's radio waves, sound waves. It has come a long way. We've come a long way in this explosion of technology and the things that go on right now. We can invent. We have our youth right now that know so much and have such an understanding of technology and have an understanding and an ability to do things and to create things and to be successful. Like, I think I see this thing called Hope Blooms in Hamilton with all these kids. They have a business over there. All started from a piece of land that they got to make a community garden, and now they're making herbs and selling all this kind of stuff and making money and giving back to the community. This is stuff that our youth are doing. And all peoples across the nation, indigenous and non-indigenous, can unite together for a cause that's just. For causes that are just. So let's get together and get these things. Let's get going. Let's get moving. And be careful.